We are back from our little Easter break with the Digital Twin Cities seminar series hosted by Chalmers University and the Digital Twin Cities Center. My name is Ben Ketzler. I'm the center coordinator and I'm the host of this seminar series. Really happy about this today's session about security risks and challenges. And as always, you're very encouraged to ask questions, to comment in the YouTube chat. This session will also be available after we've been live then on our YouTube channel. So as always, please comment, ask questions. Our speakers are happy to answer. Again, today I'm not alone. I have my colleague Graham Kemp here, who's going to be the moderator of this session. Graham, are you here?
I'm here.
Great.
Hi, Bernd.
Thanks for joining us today. Graham, you're a professor at Data Science and AI Division at Chalmers University, and you also are the leader of our research area, Data Management and Integration at the Digital Twin Cities Center. So I'm really happy to have you here as our moderator, and we'll give the stage to you now.
Okay, thanks, Bert. And I'm happy to be here too. It's my pleasure to welcome today's three speakers. We'll be hearing later on from Leonidas Kallipolitis, who's the technical manager at HSIT Research, about how security risks are addressed in a European project called DUET. That's the Digital Urban European Twins Project. We'll also hear later on from Annette Numa, who is the Digital Transformation Advisor at the e-Estonia Briefing Center, about how e-Estonia solves cybersecurity risks and challenges. But first today, we'll hear from Juanjo Hierro. Juanjo is the Chief Technology Officer of the FIWARE Foundation and the Chairman of the FIWARE Technical Steering Committee. He also supports the FIWARE community in developing the vision and value proposition of FIWARE in the several domains where it's being applied. So with that, I'll now invite Juanjo to share your presentation with us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this very interesting series of webinars, and I'm happy to be here today with you. Let me start first with a very high-level introduction about what FIWARE brings. In the first place, technology that is open source, which has been proactively helping to develop the kind of standards that we believe are needed for creating smart solutions in different sectors. Not only APIs and components, also royalty-free common smart data models. And not just the technology, but what FIWARE brings is a growing ecosystem around the technology, a vibrant community organized around not only the development of these technologies, but also the creation of digital innovation hubs, the creation of different working groups, enabling the exchange of views and sharing of practices among those who are using the technology. And well, the FIWARE Foundation, which is the organization I'm working for as CTO, which is just trying to bring support to all this, doing for the common good. And why we are here today is because actually FIWARE gravitates all around digital twin information. The vision we bring, how integration can be achieved at the different levels, is precisely gravitating around the concept of having a digital twin representation of the world. And that is what we use to bring the support, how to architect the different smart medical solutions, like it could be water management in cities or traffic control, whatever. Also, how to integrate the different systems within a given organization, like the city, breaking the information silos, taking a system of systems approach. And last but not least, also enabling how different organizations may share data and this being the city with smart building systems, smart hospitals, smart grids for bringing support to whatever process. What we mean by digital twin, I will not insist here because I understand the concept has been very much developed in the other sessions, but our idea is that of having a representation of an asset that may have a clear mapping to something that exists in the real world, but also annotated with all the information that might be inferred based on experience, based on knowledge. And what is cornerstone definitely for the development of interoperable and replicable smart solutions are three things. One, what is the common API for getting access to digital twin data? Common data models associated to the different digital twin classes we define for our systems. And last but not least, and this is where I will be focusing today, the identity and access management framework. Because without any of these three elements, we would be sacrificing interoperability, we would be sacrificing portability of solutions. And what we want to bring is a framework that really allows to create a digital single market around solutions that can be replicated from one city to another. Fiverr has driven standardization and adoption in two of these elements, the standard API with the definition of a standard API called NGSI that has evolved from the community experience, and we move at certain point to a standard body called HPC, and this now guaranteeing sustainability over time and avoiding vendor lock-in, and a smart data models initiative, which is a initiative we have launched and it's growing as we speak with more than 500 data models being used. I will not elaborate that much about the API and the data models, but very briefly, NGSI is a simple yet powerful REST API. Simple, we say, because it supports all those operations that you would expect in a RESTful API and performing standard get, post, put, patch, delete on over certain resources, but yet powerful, supporting aspects like geoquery, subscriptions, push styles for gathering data, temporal operations, and so on and so forth. Data models is how you describe the different attributes of the different entities, digital twins. And as I said, and I encourage you to visit the link, we are defining the data models in different fields. But well, this digital twin data sharing approach, as I explained, and really is proven in practice with all the many systems that are being developed nowadays with Fiverr and cities, is probably the domain where Fiverr is getting more adoption. We have more than 200 cities probably in the world using Fiverr already. And this digital twin data sharing approach brings, of course, the opportunity to break the information silos. But of course, it comes with the risk that information is not properly accessed. What is this information? Are the attributes for all these digital twins that describe what is going on in the city, which describe what is the traffic in the street, what is the the activity of a given operator and gardener in the parks and stuff like that. Information that then must be subject to proper access control by the right parties. And when I talk about parties, I mean the organizations that might be involved within the city, but also outside the city, and the users of the individual users of the different applications. The approach in Fiverr is that of following standards where there are enough number of open source implementations available. Actually, we bring some of them as part of the Fiverr catalog, but since these standards are widely known, can be used many different ways. We talk about OpenID Connect or to access control based on standard like XACML. And in addition to that, we believe it might be crucial to add a framework to log certain transactions about who, what, when has done something on digital twins, and do it in an immutable manner. That's why Fiber brings the ability to integrate with multiple distributed ledgers, technologies, blockchain, to support two things that are essential: auditing, transparency, and forensics. Of course, digital twin platforms should be hosted in environments where operations are supported with proper cybersecurity tools. To finish with a slide that I know that many people like to take a look and review, is the kind of reference architecture we end up and our members who are bringing Fireware into the different systems are implementing, where, as you see, context broker technology, which is the piece of the technology that implements NGS-ILD, is in the middle, supporting access to digital twin data, and this digital twin data being accessed with proper identity and access management control, leveraging on connections with distributed ledger technologies whenever it's necessary, controlling flow of information inside the city, but also outside the city, visible through the different open data publication platforms. To end this slide, Flowers therefore brings response to existing challenges regarding interoperability and replicability of the smart solutions. We rather believe that digital twin vision is the right way to approach that. Identity and access management is something very important to bear in mind. And that's all, and I hope this gives a good introduction for the discussion we will have to, later on in this session. Thank you.
Sorry, I've been muted. My mistake. I was just saying that's indeed an excellent overview. Thank you for that. That certainly will provide very useful background for the discussion indeed. So I think we'll leave that there for now, and we'll move on to the next presentation from Leonidas. So,
yes, hello.
Hi.
Yep.
So just to introduce you, first of all, Leonidas is a technical manager at Aegis IT Research, which is a company specializing in cybersecurity solutions and consultancy. He currently leads applications development and systems integration in the domains of digital twins, digital forensics, and also big data analytics. And as I mentioned in the introduction, he's involved with the European project DUET, which is Digital Urban European Twins, where he's representing Aegis and is responsible for the multi-layered security model and specifications. So with that, over to you.
Okay, thanks for the introduction. I think my camera looks frozen, but I hope you can hear me well.
We can, yes, we hear you well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me start with the presentation. So I will be presenting DUET, which and it's an EU-funded project with the main goal to help better public decision making. So what we are trying to do is to make data easier to interpret and put together in order to create integrated views of a city and facilitate data-driven decision making, mainly via 3D interfaces, which present the knowledge coming from all the connected data sets. What we are trying to do is to bring agile processes and open innovation to government decision making, and this we aim to achieve via helping the decision makers simulate any plans they plan to do for improvement before physically implementing them in the city. This is a high-level overview of DUET, which is high-performance computing-enabled cloud to combine predictive data models and visualizations in order to to help users understand the future impact of changes in the city or policies that they want to test and simulate before actually getting applied. This we try to achieve by an interface that would allow people to explore and experiment with different data sources, to add additional data sources on their own, view policy decisions, view feedback taken on scenario predictions, and all this to be available as a digital twin starter kit, as we call it, for new cities to be able to set up their own infrastructure of a digital twin in an easiest way as possible. Just a few words on the pilots participating to the project. We have the city of Pilsen in Czech Republic, Athens in Greece, and the Flanders region in Belgium. So we have a variable, let's say, pilots of variable size to demonstrate the solution scalability. And we have the shared goals for mobility and urban planning policies, and also air quality and pollution policies that all these cities try to achieve and experiment with. I have also included some examples of visualizations that we have from currently at the platform. So we see the 3D building representations, as well as elements in the city like trees or bushes, things like that. We have such data sets in the city of Athens, for example. And the output of the information models, we have the air quality model and the way that we try to represent it on a 3D map. We have traffic models and also noise output, where we see the noise levels at different points in the cities. Now getting into the technical implementation and the way that we see and approach security in our project. So the main goals that we have focus on scalability and interoperability. We plan to try to reuse standards and technologies and to combine different models and have them work together. As mentioned in the previous presentation, this is something quite important, and we try to go this way in order to define a scalable open framework for urban digital twins. And one that will help scenarios being ported to different cities easily, and models and visualizations to be as much reusable as possible. Towards this, we have an architecture based on services and microservice approach with components exposing APIs and talking to each other via these APIs in a secure manner. Also, an event-driven communication via message streaming platform, and 3 main gateways for our internal components, which allow them to be shielded, let's say, from the outside world, thus fostering security. And this is another way to represent our architectural DUET cell architecture, as we have called it, with a series of APIs allowing the core of the DUET that lies in the center of this cell depiction to connect data, models, and visualization clients. And regarding our approach to security, we have first identified the threat taxonomy with a great deal of threats to digital twins. We tried to map them on this visualization and try to identify ways to protect the DUET platform from hopefully all of this. So in this manner, we identified some high-level security requirements, including the need for secure communications of all the devices and automated and secure deployment of them, transparent data sharing using interoperable and secure data formats, access control management, informed consent wherever the personal data and citizens are involved in the process, privacy-preserving data analytics, which always abide to security privacy regulations, and of course, increase cybersecurity awareness to all participants to the digital twin concept. And to implement these requirements, we have identified a set of security measures. This slide shows an overview of them. We have runtime authentication and authorization, secure and trusted communications, monitoring and auditing of all the actions taking place in the system, data protection and compliance, and of course, security best practices for software development throughout the development of the DUET platform. And a full map of the actual measures to each of these categories that we deploy and implement during the DUET development that it's taking place right now. Finally, the way that we implement these measures, I have a few points to highlight our approach. First of all, we have the identity access mechanism, which I believe suits nicely with what was described before. And what we are currently doing is to define exactly the user roles and the resources that will play a key role in the system, and the permissions and the level of information that can be disclosed to each user role. We have a management component allowing full control of users, data sources, and experiments, secure protocols for communication, our data catalog, that is a place to bring in all the connected data sources, our API following the Open API specification, audit and data access services, and of course, a continuous legal and ethical assessment to make sure that we always stay under compliance with the current laws. That's it. Thank you very much. I hope that yes, the way that we take into it shows an instantiation of what was mentioned before. So I guess it would be a nice opportunity to continue discussion right after the presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have a couple of questions coming in, but we'll take those, I think, in the discussion that follows. And at this point, we'll move on to Annette Numa. So Annette is the Digital Transformation Advisor at the e-Estonia Briefing Centre. She focuses on enhancing good cooperation between the public and private sector to create a comprehensive and supportive environment. And her goal at the e-Estonia Briefing Centre is to explain the Estonian digitalization experience, and through this to inspire leaders and decision makers alike to create a better tomorrow. So with that, Annette, I hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I was already so fast jumping over here. So first of all, hello to everyone, and greetings from a very beautiful and sunny city of Tallinn, Estonia. I'm joining you here today and trying to make a little bit more maybe general overview about the cybersecurity and the security aspects in general, as we heard very technical things from the previous two presentations, as I represent the government of Estonia here. So I would most likely to focus on the general aspects, like how we have built our infrastructure in order to make sure that also the urban planning, the mobility sector and so on are safe and sound here, and you will get an overview how our infrastructure has been built in order to make sure that we don't have many security leaks or threats in the system as well. I'm not going to waste any time on introducing myself, as you heard a couple of sentences already, so I'm going to jump all the way to the very first slide. And as all of you might be aware of, then Estonia is pretty well known as one of the most digital countries in the entire world. And as being a small and very digitalized country, I would say that we do not have this kind of luxury in order to have or afford to have any kind of cyber attack. So that's why we needed to build a very, very safe infrastructure. And I very much wanted to show you this slide, especially because this gives the best overview how we have provided and make sure that our systems are safe. So we like to think about this in a way that as Estonia or any city here, it would be like a house where there is 3 pillars in place. And I'm always saying to the policymakers that visit us that if you try to take one of the pillars away from here, I'm pretty sure that the entire house would collapse. And that's why we don't recommend to do that for anyone, because these 3 things need to be in place. So first of all, the confidentiality part and the availability part, and also the integrity part, which is becoming more and more essential. So whatever we are talking about, anyone who wants to access any data or information has to do that very securely. And that's why also Estonia introduced almost 20 years ago the ID card methods, mobile ID, smart ID, e-residency cards. So that's the identification process part there. But of course, also especially when it comes to urban planning, and the entire the environment side and the mobility sector, then different institutions who are operating in the market need to be able to exchange information between each other. And we were urgently looking for a solution that these kind of data exchange would be safe, and we could sleep peacefully at night knowing that that no one who is not authorized wouldn't access our information. And since the year of 2001, we started using a solution called the X-Road, which helps our different government agencies and of course also the different institutions, also private sector institutions, or dealing with the mobility sector or just general urban planning side, to communicate with each other and do that very fast. So I'm not going to go in details by explaining exactly how does it work, but I can just tell you that they need to be authorized to access this information, and the access to the information is very, very limited. So you need to have the mutual agreement from both of the sides, and our state information authority has to allow different institutions in order to also get access to the information. And every time that we exchange information between different registries, institutions, everything is fully time-stamped and encrypted, so that we can also track this information later on as well. And one special thing about, again, when it comes to data exchange aspects, is that when we exchange information, we do that once only basis, so that our information is not stored in one central storage cloud, but they have been very much decentralized and distributed, so that we only store one specific information in one specific registry, not in different ones. So that's also one way of providing a very secure infrastructure. And then of course the integrity aspect, which is becoming especially more important when we talk about the critical infrastructure, and again the mobility sector or anything else, to you name it. So we use the KSI blockchain, but also why do we use the blockchain aspects? Especially that we don't want anyone to have access to our information or to rewrite any information without leaving any traces there. But by using the blockchain system, no one, not even the hackers, the administrators, anyone, they can't change or delete any information that there wouldn't be any traces also left behind there. And then of course also something that is kind of essential as well is the data embassy aspect, which makes Estonia pretty special, because again, when we have all of our information and data fully online, 3D cards of Tallinn map and so on, this is a very, very secure information. So we of course also wanted to make sure that if something would physically happen here, our servers would be burned down, or the hackers would be one step ahead of us, then we still need to get our information back. We can't be left here without anything. So that's why also Estonia has such a cool thing as State Embassy, which is currently based in Luxembourg, where we have backed up our information there in the servers, so that when something would happen, we could fully also get this information back from their service there. But a little bit more in details about the cyber governance when it comes again on a city level or just a government level. So we know that it has to be organized in a very proper way, so that when there is any kind of security risks or attacks or leaks happening, then there has to be some departments, institutions that are dealing with these issues. They are dealing afterwards, but of course also they have to deal with that also before, in order to prepare for these attacks to happen or to avoid these attacks to happen. So we have this wonderful organization called CERT-EE department, who is first of all focusing a lot about the campaigns, raising the awareness of people who work in different sectors, and then of course also helping different institutions, both the private and public sector institutions, so that when something would happen, how to deal with the situations, how to control the crisis, what will be the following steps, and of course like keeping up with the investigation part as well. And then the other thing that we have is also the cybercrime unit by our police and border board. And why this is necessary is because also that we want the citizens to be able to report about the accidents and so on, and they can do that by accessing the platform online and informing different like this police unit about when something has been happening, and of course also not just the citizen side, but of course also the business side, or whatever topic they're dealing with. And then we do also have the Cyber Defense League and Cyber Command, because this is, I guess, pretty clear that the armed forces or the user police is not able to protect Estonia in cyberspace aspects, but we also need to find this kind of group of people who would be able to react when something would happen in cyberspace. So we like to call it like a cyber forces, so that Cyber Defense League and Cyber Command are considered people who need to react when something would happen, and they have been exercised for that. And surprisingly, in the Cyber Defense League, these people there work on a voluntary basis, so that they every day they work in private sector companies, but when something would happen by the state aspects, then they need to react for that as well. And then of course, as especially the topic of today's discussion here is the urban planning side and the mobility sector. I don't know if some of you have heard, but the self-driving buses are legally binding on the streets here. So we have these buses running around here, and also robots delivering food and other goods. So of course there is a very huge risk, and the entire mobility sector is based on technical solutions. So that needs also much more attention, and this is what we have been giving to them for a lot of time. So there is a lot of discussions and like changes of the legal background in order to make sure that also these buses can run around here. And of course, I guess it has a lot to do with changing the mindset of people, because obviously like there is a lot of threats and maybe insecurities when you think about that. I'm going to start using, I don't know, the bus that does not have a driver, or any other, again, solutions by the urban planning that are fully optimized and managed by technology aspects. So again, I guess it's a lot to do with changing people awareness how these things work, and we need to focus on that a lot. Then also very briefly, two last slides here, about how do we shape the global approach, because I think this is also kind of essentially understand that we need to have very clear rules of behavior in cyberspace. And I'm pretty surprised that even in 2021 there is still not a clear understanding what will happen, what will be the consequences of some of the attacks, and especially, again, you can imagine how much trouble one attack or security risk can cause for the city. So Estonia is currently working also in the United Nations Security Council in order to come up with a very clear framework of the actions that will happen when one country or just a group of hackers would attack a city or a country. So we're very hardly working on that. We do also have Tallinn Manual, which is one of the first like these frameworks that describes these things. And Estonia is also the home for the NATO CCDCOE Center and the European LISA, so that we are also I would say doing all these exercises on cyber exercises on global level, educating all the NATO member states by the security aspects, and we will continue to do so because this is very, very, very essential. And I guess every one of us here need to be a little bit more aware of the threats and risks on cyberspace. And then some of the lessons that I wanted to bring it out as well that we have learned already by doing this using technology in urban planning and just like by the government level in the past 20 years or even more. So first of all, I think this is pretty clear for every one of us here that cybersecurity still needs constant attention. And I think, in my opinion, one of the most important thing is that also security starts from the very, very lowest level. So if I have had a conversation with my friends that are very not so advancing technology or not so interested in technology, then they usually say, okay, when it comes to cybersecurity, this is none of my business. I'm pretty sure there are organizations, institutions that need to deal with this. I never agree with that because I think every single citizen of the state that uses their phones, computers for work, whatever, are responsible for the cybersecurity too. And that's why we have been investing a lot of money in order to raise their awareness and organize campaigns on TVs, in schools, in workplaces, doing exercises and especially in critical infrastructure providers and so on, so to make sure that these cyber attacks are avoided in a way. And one other thing that I also wanted to bring it out here is that transparency is the key element that always works. So again, everything needs to be understandable for everyone and how things work and how the infrastructure has been built and so on, because that's also where the trust is coming in many ways, and especially when we are making some crazy decisions in innovation and city planning and so on. And last but not least, what I wanted to finish with, as I'm representing here the public sector, at the same time, we wouldn't be in this position of having such an innovative like country here and just the city and the smart city aspects that we have here without the help from the private sector. All we have done here, the success story has been built on the cooperation between public and private sector. And one thing that we're extremely proud of is that we have been able to build this kind of triangle in a way so that the universities, private sector and public sector are always working together, because I'm always saying that this is where the real magic is happening. That's where the ideas are coming from the universities, moving all the way to private sector, and then the public sector has to come up with all that these two sectors have to offer, and then to implement this for a safer and a little bit more friendlier, also the environment side, the city, the urban planning as well. So I guess this is very important to understand about that. We need to work together between different sectors so that we can actually create a little bit better tomorrow. So that was just the very like quick and short overview what we have been doing in cyberspace and what it has to do with the mobility sector and urban planning and so on. So I do hope that maybe you understand a tiny bit better now how does it work, and I can't wait for your questions.
Thanks very much, Jeanette. Thank you. So we'll move now into the discussion, and we'll be joined by the other speakers on screen. I would also ask those watching, if you have questions you would like to bring up or other points for discussion, please use the chat facility for that. If you have any questions regarding how this relates to particular applications you're working with in the digital twins context, we'd be very happy to have your questions for the discussion that follows. We have one question in the chat I'd like to raise, and this comes from Timothy Stoll, which is about managing interoperability between models and the challenges in this. Perhaps, Wanyo, you could comment on interoperability issues from your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is really a crucial aspect, and sometimes has been not given enough consideration when the truth is that it's quite fundamental. Even though I have to say also that the cities are taking this more seriously. And we see more and more cities collaborating on together in using and trying to define the common information models. There are two things I believe have to be taken into account. One is the model itself. What is the description of, if I'm coming with a description of a building or the floors within a building and so on? What are the concrete attributes that are standardized and so on? And for this, there is not a magic thing. We need the standards. And BEAM is a standard for building that I think we should all try to leverage on. What we are doing precisely in Fiverr is whenever there is a standard, we do not reinvent the wheel. We see how that standard can be incorporated into the APIs in the way to and formats you use to represent data. And that is and the second aspect that is very important, because you may have well-defined standards, in this case BEAM, but this will not solve entirely the problem, because it also depends very much what are the formats. If I'm using a RESTful API, for instance, and I'm using JSON or JSON-LD to represent data, there are 1,000 different ways of representing the same model with different JSON-LD structures. So we have to also align in respect to that. That is what precisely the Smart Data Models Initiative is intended to, is bringing a repository for developers with a portfolio, a library of all these standards and how they are mapped or in JSON and JSON-LD, so that if developers adhere to those format mappings, then they can get sure their applications will be interoperable.
Thanks very much for that. We've heard in the presentations about smart cities and digital twins and a possible convergence between these. Could anyone comment on how these two different areas are seen? Do you see these as inherently connected, or are there important distinctions that are worth to consider when thinking about security and risk? Leonidas, do you?
Yeah, so, well, I can take a bit the question. So you mean whether there is something specific regarding security and digital twins? And well, I think what is important to consider is when we talk, at the end of the day, when we talk about digital twins, how they are characterized, we are talking about attributes that take values over time and so on. And this is data. And what we are facing is nothing very much different than how I manage access to data. And this requires, first of all, come with a concrete standard way to identify, to manage the identity of the parties that access to that data, and then the ability to create policies around those identity, around the data, how who can access what when, and which are those policies that later on you can enforce. I think in the presentation of Annette, we saw that, and yeah, it's about choosing technologies for that. But there is not, in that sense, a miracle or something that is quite special here. We are talking about getting access to data, and data has to be properly, the access control to that data has to be properly managed.
Thank you. Another question that's coming in the chat, this one to Annette, regarding blockchain. And can you comment on what are the benefits that you found from this and what obstacles you've seen so far?
Well, thanks for the question. And first of all, it was also like when exactly did we start using this? So it was in the year of 2008, when first developed by the Estonian government. And the main goal, again, is there to secure the most critical information. And when we talk about the critical information, this is mostly the healthcare information, justice, business data. These are the ones that are especially used by the KSI blockchain. And especially when you think about, like, I would maybe focus on the healthcare sector side. So as I said, that it's not possible to rewrite any information, to delete any information without leaving any traces there. So what we have seen is that you can't manipulate with the hacker information. And as we know, when it comes to our medical records, they might have been submitted by so many different doctors. If you think about your one visit to the doctor and the analysis that this doctor is making, so there might be, I don't know, some analysis coming from one office of the doctor, the other one, and so on. Everyone are adding some of the information. And again, we want to make sure by using the KSI blockchain there that the other one can't delete or replace any information submitted by the other one. And I think this is, again, essential when we even think about, this has so much to do when we have medical records online with our blood test, with our blood type, so on. Like, it has so much, again, and even like the business sector, if you think about this, that if a good hacker would be able to, I don't know, log into our e-business registry and delete tons of information there without leaving any trace. So we do have this kind of backups there, and everything is, the hashes are put on every single move, and they're fully timestamped. So we have seen some great success with this, and since Estonia developed that by the government sector, that was again done by a private company called CardTime, and since Estonia did that here, then they have had tons of customers from all across the world, and also private sector who wants to use these solutions. It also comes to different organizations who deal with cyber aspects or just the security, national security part as well. So I guess this has really paid off, and already for the last 13 years.
Thanks. In your answer there, you touched on the risks to data integrity of malicious actors possibly injecting false data into the systems. Does anyone else have any comments on the technical challenges that this can present, and what measures might be taken to guard against that?
I guess the biggest, just the challenge over here is that technology is in a process of changing all the time, improving all the time, so that it very much requires us to hold the hand on the pulse all the time, and just to make sure that we are up to date with everything that we do here. And of course, also, again, in order to make sure that everyone are aware of the things, and enough knowledge and awareness have been also provided to everyone that are included to the process. So, and I guess these might be also one of the biggest challenges in that sector.
Would anyone else like to comment on issues of data integrity and measures for safeguarding?
In general, when we talk about blockchain, also, I think it's worth to mention that blockchain solves very well something that is very important, which is this ability to store data in a way that cannot be manipulated and can, stay there forever to prove whatever is needed to be proven. But we have to balance that with other things that will be needed in your system, because we also need to get access to the data in a quite performing manner. We also need to support this integrity of data, how to ensure also that from the source of information, which might be coming from sensors, to the point at which the data is stored in the blockchain, no manual intervention is happening, which might be the source for manipulation. How, in any case, if we are talking about data that is being provided by user, we avoid that this data is not fake. These are other elements that are not going to be solved by the blockchain technology itself. Blockchain works for what it works, and we need to come with a nice combination of the two things. I want to mention into that what I think is very nice from the perspective of Europe is that blocks like the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure and the context block technology are now part of the a program like the Connecting Europe Facility program run by the Commission. So I think we have to feel proud in Europe that positively all these elements are pieces that are being integrated together, recommended by the Commission to the public sector, and this will pave the way for showing how cities may emerge in Europe, supporting portability and interoperability of solutions.
Thanks. To pick up on your answer there, you mentioned the whole chain of data from its collection right through, and the importance of every step in that process to the integrity. Leonidas, thinking about the very large number of endpoints that there might be in a complex city twin with massive amounts of data. Are there any particular risks associated with there being so many potential data sources that we need to consider?
Yes, well, this was actually a question that we had as a consortium, let's say, when starting the project, how we should handle with the abundance of data sources, and if DUET would have to be yet another replication point, let's say, for all these sources, or how to go on this matter. The approach that we took was to actually develop a broker service, if like we call it, a data broker service, where we just in a way link to these sources, and what we're trying to do is to make this service intelligent enough to be able to understand the semantics of the linked sources, and let users of DUET actually, understand what the data that are connected and offered through DUET are useful for. So this is one part. And another comment that I wanted to make from the experience that we have so far, we are halfway in the project with our pilot cities, is that we described about the process and all the places and all the risks in between until we reach a nice, safe place like blockchain. But what we see is quite important is actually the role of people themselves. So when our partners in the cities talk to the city representatives and decision makers, it looks like we still have to raise a lot of awareness about the cybersecurity concerns and what comes together, with all this digital transformation. So this is also an important part. Aside the technology itself, and of course we constantly keep finding new ways to assist the process, but still it looks like the factor of the users themselves is also really important nowadays yet.
Thank you. Thanks. We still have time for questions in the chat if anyone wishes to ask a question, but in the meantime, I'd like to ask about critical infrastructures. In one of the earlier seminars in the series, the issue of possible risks on critical infrastructures came up. And to any of you, to all of you, because of the close representation of the real thing, can a digital twin in some way increase the vulnerability to attacks, either attacks on the digital system or on the physical city itself?
Okay, I might say something first on this part. I believe that a problem like that probably falls into what we're discussing about, proper access management and enforcement of permission rules. I mean, what we are trying to do into it is exactly that. Information like the one that you said that can be considered as classified should not be propagated to the view that a visitor in the platform would see. So only people with the specific roles could get to the detail that would might reveal such sensitive information. So I think that technology-wise, at least, the problem lies into a proper, access control mechanism enforcement.
That's a good point. Any other perspectives on this?
Yeah, I would also agree from my side here that there has to be, again, like a clear understanding of accessing information for authorized parts. But of course, if you come up with something new and of course, I mean, the risk is always remaining there. But again, it's a matter of how you organize the infrastructure side and how these access has been provided. And again, we can avoid these things and avoid these risks in order if we especially focus on building a great infrastructure first of all, and we have to understand about how things work and then who can for what permissions is also the access information.
Thanks. One thing that I was struck by in several of the presentations was the use of the word open, with open source and open data platforms, open innovation, transparency. We're talking about security and risks, but openness seems to be very important in this field and perhaps even a contributing factor towards having good security. Any comments on this?
Well, open standards are cornerstone. I think that is definitely the way to go. Also for security, as we have been discussing today, cornerstone aspects are identity management, access control, enforcement, the definition of policies. Good news is that there are already standards for this. Now kind of the challenge is how to integrate those standards with the other standards we want to use for digital twin data representation and APIs, and how to integrate that as well with blockchain. I think that is the challenge we have nowadays technically, how to integrate all those things together and smoothly, and make it the life easier for developers, not the other way around. And I think we are in that path. But definitely in making such an integration accelerate, I think open source initiatives are fundamental, because is the way, also people can see transparently how things are integrated. They may also be able to assess where there might be some risk and let the community know, and this way we will evolve faster and for the good of everyone.
Thank you. Well, we've reached the end of our hour, so I'd like to thank all of the speakers once again. Juanjo, Leonidas, and Annette, and Bernd, I'll pass back to you to wrap up the session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Graham, for moderating the session. Thank you to all speakers for very interesting inputs. We will now leave the part of the series where we talk about the challenges and risks, and we'll actually go further into the opportunities. So next week, we'll talk about opportunities for community engagement and civic engagement. And the week after, we will address opportunities for circularity and circular economies. So those will be very interesting sessions as well. I hope you will join us then again. Thanks again to everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Stay safe.